Yo, parish orphans and retrogrades. Today we're dealing with the heavy burdens of Catholic fundamentalism. A video done by Mr. Trent Horn of Catholic Answers yesterday wherein he named myself and a few others that he designates Catholic fundamentalists. And get this, Trent, whom I know, is a nice guy. He's a nice guy. He's a funny guy, but he's a very nice guy. He was plucky enough to depict me and others, the Catholic fundamentalists, as Pharisees in his video. This is quite rich. This is plucky. One thing, Pharisees are the most odious, villainous characters in the New Testament, as you know. These are people that literally believe in the evil Talmud, which is why our Lord hated them. We're going to deal with this in a second. They were Talmudic scholars. The Talmud is a filthy, filthy book. And so Jesus disliked them because of that. That's why Jesus hated the Pharisees, by the way. They're Talmudic scholars. Unlike other Jews in the day, like the Sadducees, they used the Talmud, which is a book of basically demonic worship that comes out of Babylon. It's mixed in with Old Testament teachings, but it's like a Babylonian form of demon worship mixed in with Old Testament teachings. And Jesus hates the Pharisees that way. Now, normie Catholics, like those at Catholic Answers, where Trent works, have been saying that the Pharisees were hated by Jesus because they were like too good. They were pristine. This is a load of rich creamery butter to cite The Simpsons. It's because they were a den of vipers. Jesus calls them a den of vipers. They're the worst characters because they use the Babylonian Talmud. So we'll deal with lots of the claims of Trent, maybe even all of them, but he includes me in this rogues gallery of Catholic fundamentalists because his claim is that that fundamentalists extrapolate on what is required by Scripture or tradition or magisterium, and that their extrapolations involve interpolations. Like we're drawing out of the text instead of just straightforwardly reading the text. It might be true with some in a couple of the cases of his other hit list criticisms. It's not with regard to me. He, as always, Trent is still nursing, poor little Trent Horn is still nursing a sore bottom from the spanking that he was handed 5 years ago when we double debated death penalty, where he outed himself as a modernist, and feminism, where he outed himself as a feminist. And ever since, he's been looking to spin gold from straw and make that not a ginormous embarrassment for himself and his organization. And so, you know, he's a nice guy and I like him, but he's engaged in a lot of girlish passive aggression, and even had literal girlish passive aggression because his wife, you know, and he, in whose head I occupy far too much real estate. I have a smaller show than he does. I have a smaller, cooler audience. He has a bigger, dorkier audience. More normie, more boomer, you know. If you could measure the amount of members of all the Catholic audiences with guys that work out repping 2 plates on bench, it's going to be the retrogrades. You people are the bros and the chads out there. But it's not as large an audience. I didn't get in this rap game to get a huge audience. And this is what, you know, I went through all this when I started this channel, and I told Taylor Marshall, you know, peace out. It's not about the biggest audience. It's about getting the truest audience where you can say the most true stuff so you don't become a captive creator. Well, Trent and his wife was making videos targeting me, my wife, my brother, troubles we've had, you know, whatever, for like a year. This is a lady with a very non-mellifluous voice taking pot shots for a year. And I didn't say boo. That's fine. I have thick skin. I've always had thick skin. And I grew thicker skin over the last, 5 or 6 years. You want to be on the internet, boy, you got to work. You got to thicken that epidermis and even the dermis below. that's fine. I don't have to have everyone singing my praises, saying I'm the nicest guy, saying I'm the best guy. That's fine. It doesn't bother me. I have thick skin. I didn't say boo when Trent's wife attempted humor with all those videos and like I was in everyone, or my wife or my brother. I couldn't care less. I told them I'll next time I'm in Dallas, we'll go to dinner. I'll still take them to dinner. But you know, I have all sorts of pearl clutchers in the really, really school marmy Catholic internet world. It's just a bunch of school marms. I won't tell you who contacted me in DMs saying, "Oh, don't make jokes about Trent's J-Fro." I said, "Look, man, I like the NBA. I grew up watching early 80s footage of Magic Johnson and Larry. Even Larry had a fro. Now, it's not a J-Fro, but Larry Bird had a fro. All, you know, Magic in his Michigan State days had a fro. A lot of my favorite basketball players had fros. So that's a haircut I happen to admire, sir."
You look great in the J-Fro.
Thank you. So Trent Horn having a J-Fro, that's cool, dog. That's really cool. I'm sure it's always served him well in social setting. Yeah, you can get glad in the same shorts you got mad in or whatever. All the school marms out there. They're not in this audience, but don't give me that. He calls me a Pharisee. That takes a lot of pluck for a man of a Jewish ethnic background. We'll go to dinner. We'll eat a brisket or whatever. But now I do have to address the falsities, because Catholic Answers is a modernist feminist organization for half-Catholic boomers. And it's propped up on doing these tired Protestant apologetics. Everyone knows we don't worship Mary and the saints. Okay, that's like the one thing they say that's true. We don't worship Mary and the saints. Here's why. Okay, unless you're retarded, aka Protestant, you don't believe this. You know we don't worship Mary and the saints. And then everything else they do justifies this weird claims that a lot of the other people are extrapolating on what's required by Catholic scripture, tradition, magisterium. And in some cases, he's right. I'm going to run through them really fast. The other instances. Other people can defend themselves, but I'll defend who needs defending. But he makes some valid critiques of extrapolations. That means laying extra heavy burdens rather than what some clear Catholic teaching requires. But then he gets to me, and he's still butthurt from that spanking he got 5 years ago. He still can't deal with the fact that it was just embarrassing for him to be defending modernism vis-a-vis the death penalty and feminism vis-a-vis feminism. And so he's still not over it. And he doesn't accuse me of extrapolation, because he can't. He reads the catechism, which says women can't go out. And then he's like, instead of saying what he said about the other fundamentalist Catholics, all he's left with me is like mocking the catechism. It's bizarre. He just literally says, what about like moms who want to go on a play date? What is a play date? Moms who go and play with each other, I guess. It says, what about moms that want to go to each other's houses and go on play dates? I don't know what this is. Trent, you're a big, I guess, guy who uses the lexicon and the neologisms of suburban housewives. That's cool. But I don't know what a play date is. I guess it's where mothers get together and discuss over coffee, and they call it playing on a date or something. I have no clue. We don't talk like that here. But yes, that is forbidden by the catechism. And instead of charging me about extrapolation, I'm laying extra heavy burdens on top of what the Catholic requirements are. I just read them. And he was mad 5 years ago when I read him the catechism. So he just starts like he did 5 years ago. He hasn't learned a damn thing, mocking what the catechism teaches. But then one time he says, they say this means wives can't work outside the home. What about play dates or homemaking classes at other women's houses? What are these things?
I've never done any of that.
Who wants to? I mean, a woman's place is in the home, dude. The catechism says that. I'll read it to you. But at any rate, he does sort of admit that I don't engage in extrapolation or interpolation. I just read him the catechism and he doesn't like it. It offended him down from the J-Fro down to the tiptoes. And he's still mad about it. And he I don't know what. He cites John Paul II and John the 23rd, who, by the way, I know way more about this than Trent does. They never once contradict the 2,000-year-old teaching saying that women may work outside the home. They flirt because those are, two of the most liberal popes in the last, ever, John the 23rd and John Paul II. They both were the two most feminist ones. They flirted with the idea of, by insinuation, women may work. But John Paul II says this, friendo. He says this directly. To take up paid work outside the home is wrong from the point of view of the good of society and of the family. To take up paid work outside the home is wrong from the point of view of the good of society and of the family. Now, he's not talking about single women. That's John Paul II, who did call himself a feminist. He flirted in other places, and that's in Laborum Exercens. He flirted in other places with language where he doesn't stipulate. Does he mean married women, and does he mean work outside the home? Single women can work outside the home. Married women can work inside the home or in its curtilage. The term of art is curtilage. That's because they're allowed to aid their husbands in husbandry, in yeoman's work, and farm work. Okay? So they are allowed, married women are allowed to work inside the home, and single women are allowed to work outside the home. But even the feminist pope, not Francis, but John Paul II, wanted to call himself the Christian feminist pope, says this. I'll repeat it from Laborum Exercens. To take up paid work outside the home is wrong from the point of view of the good of society and of the family. Okay? And this comes having considered that the Roman Catechism, do we have the duties of wives? Trent does read it. It says women are not allowed to go outside of the home except in extreme necessity with the permission of their husbands. Yeah. To train their children in the practice of virtue and to pay particular attention to their domestic concerns should be the special objects of their attention. The wife should love to remain at home. They're not even just saying you have to remain at home. The catechism is fixing the disposition of the individual constituent woman, fixing how you should feel about having to stay home. She should love to stay at home, remain at home, unless compelled by necessity to go out, and should never presume to leave home without her husband's consent. So Trent's whole video was on Catholics who lay extra, at what we would call in Latin, ad extra burdens, ad hoc, post hoc, to what the Catholic teaching is already laying. And there are some Catholic fundamentalists who do this. Jacob Imam makes quite a strong, now popularized case against usury. I don't know about the 401k thing, but Jacob convinced me about a lot of my blind spots because being raised, under a boomer kind of cosmology, you don't even think that usury might be bad. And I just hadn't thought about it that much. Fish swimming in dirty water. So Jacob and others made a pretty good case. It's pretty clear. Same as what I'm saying is pretty clear about usury. Now, 401ks, I don't know if that counts. Risk offsets it according to Gregory the Ninth and the Fifth Lateran Council, which are very old. They say if you're taking a risk, that's where you can get a little interest. I don't know exactly how 401ks work. It's very boring. It's a very stupid inside baseball. No one really cares kind of thing to talk about unless you have a 401k, but I don't. But at any rate, he's trying to lump me in with some weirdos who say you can't even hold hands, during courtship. Yeah, there's some weird guy. I don't even know. I don't watch Catholic YouTube, okay? I make my videos and people notify me when someone's taking a hit out, and I watch other stuff on YouTube. Watch NBA stuff. We're looking out for Stranger Things 5 updates. Okay. I don't care about weirdo guy who got beaten up in high school who makes a video about you can't hold hands. On the other hand, I don't care about weirdo guy who got beaten up in high school who says, I'm a Catholic fundamentalist, except, it's Trent Horn. So I have to defend myself a little against it. The unifying theme is most of these Catholic YouTube guys, excluding myself and a couple others, were weirdo guys that got beaten up in high school. And it's kind of revenge of the nerds. And my audience knows this. Doesn't mean I hate these guys. A lot of them are nice guys. They're nice when they're getting stuffed into lockers in high school, and they're nice guys now. But that doesn't mean I'm going to take it on the chin. When Trent is lumping me in with a group of extrapolators, he's calling Pharisees, and come on. But I'm not an extrapolator, okay? So he starts out and he says something like, Pharisees were the most righteous people. And Trent, come on, you're showing the provenance here. This is what normies have been brainwashed to think. Pharisees were not the most righteous. Jesus says they were a den of vipers. Now, in other places, he does say, do as they say, not as they do. So they weren't actively teaching Talmudically. The Talmud got extra bad because it's an oral tradition after Jesus' time, but there's bad stuff in it before Jesus' day. And guess what? The Pharisees were like the main religious Jewish group that had the Talmud. Filthy Babylonian demonic book mixed in with Old Testament teachings. So Jesus didn't like them for this reason and others, but it's not because they were righteous. It's just wrong. That's just why does Jesus hate the Pharisees? I'm not doing a whole show on it now. Maybe I will later, but you guys you got a pet. You got a responsibility. You got to look into that. Why did Jesus hate the Pharisees? It's a basic question. It's not because they were righteous. This requires a show. I say it's because they had the Talmud. At the very least, he said, do as they say, not as they do. This den of vipers. But, don't call me a Pharisee, Trent. Look, we can still be friends. We'll still go eat brisket. But if you want to. I do like Trent. Okay? Even if I live rent-free in his head for the last 5 years, and there's acts of passive aggression, I forgive thee. It's cool. But Catholic Answers is one of the main outfits that's served to brainwash normie Catholics, low information Catholics, that the Pharisees were extra good. There's a lot of bias loaded into that. In this whole, what's the relationship between the Jews and the Christians and the Old Testament and the New Testament? There's a lot of bias laid into that by saying, the Pharisees, Jesus hated them because they were too perfect. It's like a Michael Scott resume filler. What's your greatest weakness? I'm too perfect. The Pharisees were not perfect. These wicked vipers, the ones that killed Christ, they worshipped at the Talmud, the demonic post-Babylonian book. I'll have to do a show on that. That's not what this is about.